Actually, when I was with Prince, he wasn't as overtly, I'm not sure if I should say spiritual or religious, or maybe both, as he has become in more recent years.
But you guys did love sexy.
Yeah, for sure. But he still wasn't as I mean, he wasn't
I
out
didn't during the
outdoors.
religious years. Like, I had to sit for those talks for like 9 hours.
Yeah.
Not an hour.
I mean, years after I left, there was actually a room in Paisley Park that was known as the Room of Wisdom, where he would take people and read Jehovah's Witness tracts and so on and give advice to band members when he thought they needed guidance. That wasn't happening when I was there. There were a lot of rooms. I don't know if there was a lot of wisdom. But still, there was obviously a religious aspect to him. But it always kind of struck me as if he had a fear of religion or a fear of God as much as an embrace, because it certainly wasn't anything that he was living at the time. I mean, this is way before he became a vegetarian or a vegan. It was way before he publicly embraced any particular religion as he has the Jehovah's Witnesses in recent years. And the only thing I remember that was really meaningful on a one-on-one basis was whenever he would hire somebody new, at some point, and it might be weeks, it might be months, at some point he was going to catch you when you were least thinking about it and sit in front of you in a restaurant or in a bar after a show or maybe in the recording studio and just out of nowhere look at you and say, "Do you believe in God?" And it was almost as if that's your test, that's your litmus test, and you better answer it right, you may not have a job the next day. That's the feeling you got. I don't know if anybody ever had the guts to say no. I certainly didn't, because I believe in God. but nonetheless, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if somebody had said no or gone into some kind of a really religious dialogue with him. But how that translates to his music, which is really more important, I suppose, is that whatever spirituality was there from day one, probably Love Sexy was the first overt example of it. And we caught a lot of flack from, this was an album that was released in 1988, and had a picture of him basically naked on the cover. It was a very controversial cover. The album was rejected by all the chain stores, the big box stores, Kmart. I don't think Walmart existed yet, but whatever those kind of stores were, they wouldn't display it. Target stores wouldn't carry it. And we were really upset in-house about the cover for that reason. Of course, it provoked controversy, which is, a good thing, but there was a lot written about the record that really suggested people didn't understand what he was trying to say. In-house, a lot of us didn't either. But what it really boiled down to, and I'm paraphrasing very loosely because you don't want to speak for all women, I don't want to speak for all princes. He kind of saw sex as something that anything that could be that good must be a blessing from God. So he really is kind of saying sex and love are part of the same tree. They're branches of the same tree. They don't always go together, but they come from the same place. So it was really hard for him to look at sex in any kind of a negative way. And I think you could trace that back to what you were talking about earlier, and also what Toure was talking about in terms of the fact that so often in his lyrics, the woman is in a dominating role, or at least an authoritative role, which could even suggest that there's a mother figure wrapped up in these heroines of his.
Sure. I mean, one thing that we talked about is that this sort of dynamic of spirituality and sexuality or sensuality is a constant black music trope. Right back to Ray Charles, Aretha, Marvin Gaye, of course, Al Green, through R. Kelly and others. We've been, as black music, we've been playing with both of those in a career, within a song, within an album, on and on and on. Prince just does it at perhaps a different level, saying only he and Marvin Gaye are most outwardly arguing, can I be sexual and spiritual Saturday night and Sunday morning within the same life? Can I reconcile both?
Yeah, but the controversy with the gospel R&B mixing in the 50s and 60s with Ray Charles and Aretha was really more musical, because they were taking gospel music forms and adapting them which was looked at as sacrilegious by people.
Sure.
And we're long past that by the time Prince came along, because the music, the vocabulary, the musical devices in the vocabulary of a gospel artist, an R&B artist, a jazz artist, were pretty much blurred together by then.
Sure.
Whereas in Ray Charles's early years, that wasn't the case. It was, very distinct. This is gospel, here's how you play. This is R&B, here's how you play, and never the twain shall meet. By the time Prince, it was all mixed together. So the controversy was really much more about his lyrics and his politics than it really was his music.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I try to explore with a lot of people is, did the guy think that he was a Messiah? Did he think that he was descendant from God, and that this sort of flow of music that never stopped 24/7 was part of God speaking to him? And you told me something that I never knew, that he made a movie, or began making a movie, before Purple Rain, which was called...
Was it The Flesh?
Or the Second Coming.
The Second Coming, yeah.
Which was about him returning to Minneapolis as a triumphant musician. But obviously he knew what that would activated people, this idea that he is the second coming, right? And when you talk about I Would Die For You, the third verse of Purple Rain, on and on, there's just these little ways that, is he doing that Christian music thing of speaking in the voice of God? Or is he saying, wink, wink, I'm the one that you should be following?
See, I think the church definitely thought the latter example.
Sure.
Because I went to that sort of fire and brimstone church where, once a year they have like a special Wednesday night where you're supposed to bring in like demonic records that should be destroyed. And so, this one particular night, someone brought in 1999 and Purple Rain, and my mom's all looking at me like, you know we're going to destroy the record, you're gonna have that. And so, it's weird, because like as a 19-year-old, you're allowed to freely explore this, but I mean, I was 14, so it's like, it's weird that during that peak of his career, like, he caught a certain, a certain part of the generation, and there's that gap that wasn't allowed to.
I mean, part of what I was trying to get at when I talk about him as the most important religious artist of all time is that, unlike gospel artists who are preaching to the choir and talking to people who want those messages and want to be reaffirmed, he, like Jesus, was talking to people who are uninitiated and spreading messages about God in Love Sexy, in Let's Go Crazy, in 1999, in Purple Rain, all these different songs, all these different albums, just planting
intercessory stuff,
the messages, the seeds.
Says
and I mean, like, maybe we weren't ready for it, but we certainly didn't want it. We certainly weren't in the club listening, or in our headphones listening to this hypersexual artist looking for religious messages, but he's just planting them there, and when you're ready to work with them, then they'd already be there.
Well, I think the reason why most people didn't take it as that, like I always took I Would Die For You as in he's speaking like for Jesus. In other words, not like I'm the Messiah, but like a lot of gospel artists.
Even though he says, I'm your Messiah.
No, I know that. But see, in gospel music, people write in that second person thing as God, and you take it as, oh, this person is doing intercessory, like, as a channel through God. But of course, because you don't think of Prince, or at least you didn't think of him having any sort of spirituality, like most people in the church thought he was of the devil's loins. Like,
right. But he's
so
telling
people took him literally as, oh, now you're trying to say you're the Messiah, and.
But if they really listened, he was giving us Jesus
and
and God, not sympathy for the devil, not Madonna iconoclasm, but like very traditional presentation of Christianity. God is right, the devil is wrong. Even in I Know, with God, my mind is clear, and with the devil, my mind is staticky. Just like, if they had really been able to listen beyond the sex, they would have been like, well, you should be listening to this.
Yeah, but a lot of ignorance is, that's being blind to, people make judgments all the time based on not reviewing the evidence, so.